Hey guys, welcome back to Cult of Film. I wasn't gonna review today's film just because I like to cover more obscure stuff, but I gotta say, as someone who has followed the Marvel Cinematic Universe, was a comic book reader, really probably from age 4 to 20. So much of this stuff really is deep in my subconscious and stuff that I've enjoyed. And I have to say that Deadpool and Wolverine was really fun. And I went in with some real questions. First and foremost, where does this movie take place? Because obviously we got Deadpool teaming up with Hugh Jackman Wolverine, which is the 20th Century Fox Wolverine. And last I checked, we had a movie called Logan that came out a few years ago that really put uh, the cap on that character's life. Fantastic movie too. It really was really brilliantly done. Highly recommended if you even if you don't like Marvel or X-Men. If you're someone who digs an existential, almost cowboy flick western, check out Logan. It's really good. Back to Deadpool and Wolverine. So my concern was, where does this take place? Where does this fall in the timeline? And it opens up, and I'm gonna. There's gonna be a few spoilers here. I'm not gonna give away too many because there's a lot of really fun. There's so much fan love in this movie, in addition to it just being brilliantly written. But my big concern was that they were going to go back to the tail end of Logan, which had been beautifully, sort of tied off, buttoned off, and it seemed that they started to do that, and then something occurred that prevents them from doing that. And so, luckily, and in terms of, I thought it was good taste, they didn't mess with that. Even though the character of Deadpool was going to kind of do that, because Deadpool can kind of be a bit of a jerk, we all know, but a lovable jerk. Anyways, we get Deadpool teamed up with Wolverine, a Wolverine, in another way, which I won't ruin. What the big takeaways for me were in this film were how well written it is. I'm not sure how much of this Ryan Reynolds wrote, but whomever was writing with him or for him really gets his voice and really knocked it out of the park. I can't remember the last time I laughed out loud at a movie, and it is almost like machine gun fire quips and witticism and punchlines in this movie. It is so good. It is so quick. It is so smart. As a comedy, that alone should get you out there. The things that Deadpool says is just, he's a wild character. This is why we love him. But on top of that, that's just one layer of what I love about this film. There's multiple layers, and it's amazing how they weave all of them together for a movie that I think can satisfy a lot of people. I wouldn't say it's definitely not a movie for kids, and yet I saw a lot of younger people and even kids in the audience. I'm sure a lot of this stuff went over their head, but there's stuff even for them, obviously, because it's a comic book movie. But in addition to the comedy and the beautiful comedic writing uh, that is in this film, you have this also really interesting set of existential crises that face both Deadpool and Wolverine that are really dealt with beautifully. Maybe more so for Wolverine than for Deadpool, because it's difficult for Deadpool to take anything seriously. But he's got some moments where, oh yeah, that's right, he's a human being too, and there are certain things that he wants to achieve. That no matter whether you are a victim of the Weapon X program, if you're a mutant, if you're a world traveling assassin, you're a human being too. And human beings need human connection. They need love. They need romance. They need friends. And that is really beautifully crafted in this film as well, along with that comedy layer. There are some, moments that are sort of stepped on by the comedy. there are other moments where they really do let the vulnerability and the existential angst of the characters really bleed through as well. Again, beautifully done. The other layer, or another layer, that I really enjoyed was the choice of villain, and I'm not spoiling anything here. It doesn't ruin anything, but the villain is a really kind of esoteric villain by X-Men standards. Back in the early 2000s, comic book writer Grant Morrison, who basically reinvented the Doom Patrol at DC in the late 80s and early 90s. He did a lot on Batman. The guy's just a genius. He was put on X-Men and gave us probably one of the most interesting, eclectic, cool, weird, fun runs on X-Men, probably since Chris Claremont was writing the book, and he was on that book for 17 years. You know, he's kind of granddaddy of most of the stuff that we see in X-Men 97, in the movies, in most of the media. Almost all of that was written by Chris Claremont, and really deserves to be acknowledged for that. That said, with Grant Morrison's run, again, he did cool, eclectic, weird stuff. And one of the things he did on his run on X-Men was create a character called Cassandra Nova. And Cassandra Nova, she's one of my favorite villains. And to my knowledge, I don't know that she's popped up a whole lot since Grant Morrison was on X-Men. Granted, I haven't read an X-Men comic in probably 15, 16, 17 years. It's been a while. But Cassandra is the twin sister of Professor X. I won't explain how that happens. Just know that she's pretty damn powerful. And it's sort of, what would Professor X be if he was not as good as he is and he was in kind of a bad mood? Badass villain. Cassandra Nova is pretty awesome. And how they weave her in there is a lot of fun. And this leads me to my next point, is the amount of the other aspect, a layer in this film that I love, is the amount of fan service that probably went over a lot of people's heads with regard to, there's so many images, in this film. I won't say of who or what, but there are so many images or scenes or just shots, compositions that are of iconic covers from Marvel's Uncanny X-Men comic. So much out there from, it's amazing how much, again, they mine from the 80s and maybe the early 90s. So much stuff there from the X-Men comics that show up literally as shots in this film. And again, they're beautifully done. That level of attention proves to me again why Marvel has been so successful, because the inmates run the asylum. Part of why, especially that first, 10, 11 years of MCU that culminated with Endgame did so well. And I would say, I even kick that over to Shang-Chi, which is just brilliant. I love Shang-Chi. I've watched it multiple times, and it's just beautifully done. Is you have people on the creative production side that really know the source material. And Deadpool and Wolverine is again, another really nice piece for the MCU that you can tell they've done their homework. They really have gone into the archives, and they've hired people to write these and to produce these films that can reach a mass audience, obviously, but also to acknowledge those of us that are fans. There's a lot of fan love in this movie, and not to the detriment of any of the things that I mentioned. The comedy, the writing, the character arcs, the drama, none of it suffers. They have really figured out a way to just beautifully fold in those acknowledgments of the source material, making a bit of a love letter to the fans. And it was so fun, really fun. I expected this film, and again, I'm going to try not to spoil anything here. I expected this film to be, and then I think a lot of us thought this was going to be the film that sort of resets the MCU with regard to the X-Men films, that X-Men universe. I remember reading years ago that we were supposed to, lost one of my lights here. Anyway, we there we go. Where was I at? Oh, that we were supposed to start to get X-Men characters getting sort of filed into the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think we're supposed to get Rogue in one of the Captain Marvel movies. We were supposed to get Storm in Black Panther 2. And they're just going to start layering it in, building it up. And that so far hasn't happened. So maybe that was just, fan rumors. But I also recall people saying that, not to worry because Deadpool is going to be the one that addresses X-Men and folds them in somehow or whatnot. And that wasn't quite the case, but there are surprises in this film. Again, I'm not going to ruin it for you because, again, this is a pretty fresh film. I don't want to ruin it for you. There's some really fun, cool surprises in this film that I think are worth. If you're a fan, if you're someone who's been watching Marvel Comics movies, for the past few decades, not just the past decade, but I mean decades plural. There's some fun stuff in there. Again, this is a incredible comedy. Ryan Reynolds is not just a comedic genius; he's just a performative genius in what he does. It's an interesting and substantive sort of existential story about characters that are trying to make their way in the world, to be better, to atone for mistakes they've made. It is a great actioner. There are the fight scenes in this movie, borderline from ridiculous to really cool. Again, very fun. Again, the main villain, I should say villains, aren't one-dimensional. They're pretty layered. Plenty of acknowledgement there to the source material. There were no corners cut, and again, there's been a lot of rumbling, at least through a lot of my filters that I have on social media. People saying, "Oh, Marvel's done, Marvel's over, MCU's over." If Deadpool and Wolverine is any indication of what Marvel Disney is going to continue to do with their properties, I think MCU is far from over. This was so well done. It was so beautifully executed. And I think that there's nothing wrong with what seems to be their strategies. They're going to drop a couple of films a year, and maybe that's it. And maybe get a little more niche, a little more genre-like. We've seen things like Werewolf by Night, which was very genre-esque. I would say that Deadpool is probably one of the nerdiest sort of geek fan servicey Marvel films we've had. And the first two were great and were like that too. I think this is the best one yet. And at the same time, it has plenty of appeal to people who maybe they've seen a few Marvel films or they've watched all the Marvel films but haven't read, the comics as deeply as the rest of us have. 4 out of 4 stars for me. Check this one out. I'm excited again for what we could get with Marvel. I really have loved X-Men '97, which just wrapped, a month ago on Disney Plus, and Deadpool and Wolverine. This is something I would watch again in the theater. It's that fun. Ryan Reynolds, again, super talented, super lovable. Deadpool is such a unique character. He's like your wacky, funny, queer friend who also has a license to kill. Just fun, just really fun, really well done, well crafted in terms of what it is. And the criticism of superhero films, it doesn't stick. Certainly doesn't stick on this one. Well done, guys. Yeah, so check out Deadpool and Wolverine. Let me know what you guys thought below. Please comment, like, subscribe, hate. That'll help me with the algorithm too. But check it out, and I don't think you'll be sorry. Even if you just go in not knowing any of this stuff, the commentary, the rapid fire, machine gun fire comedy of it is, again, first time I've laughed out loud in a movie theater in a long time. So check it out, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.